Welcome back, folks. It hasn't been that long since everyone has heard us. We just released the Christmas pub quiz and we are back again and we are reviewing Avatar, The Way of the Water. This entire episode is going to be an Avatar episode. So if you are not interested in that, you can just stop now and come back in the next episode. There's going to be no other content but Avatar. So spoilers will be incoming.
No other content. Just spoilers. Spoilers all the way down.
So, as always, when we do these things, Bill, I'd like to get a sort of like overall vibe check from you. What did you think of this movie overall? And we'll go into the details in a bit.
I thought the first 2.5 hours were pretty bad. And then the last 45 minutes was kind of fun.
Interesting. So overall, what, like, you'd give it like a run-of-the-mill sort of movie? It's fine.
Yeah, like the overall impact of it was, yeah, fine, whatever. If not for the fact that it were 3.25 hours long. I mean, that was a little excessive for me.
It was very long. It was very, very long. How do you think it measured up relative to the first one, if you recall the first one?
Not only do I not recall the first one, I in fact cannot recall the first one. Because I've never seen it.
Oh, you never seen it?
No.
Oh, well, damn. We totally should have we should have watched that. We should have made it, because for the listeners, Bill and I, as we are wont to do, we met up to go see this in person. Had I known that you'd never seen the first one, we could have arranged to like do a viewing of that before watching the other one.
Oh, I thought I'd said that to you the last day.
Oh, no, I have no idea. I figure you probably need, like, there's a lot of context one needs going into The Way of the Water, which you just didn't have.
I don't really feel like there was.
Well, there's recurring characters and things like that, but, wow, that's mental. You've never seen the first one. Huh.
Yeah, that's why I asked you, just as the film was starting, for a 15-second plot summary of the first one. I wasn't joking when I said that.
Oh. Oh God, yeah. So that just totally went over me. There you go. My thoughts on this are like yourself. I thought this was excessively long. I thought most of it was pretty crap. But unlike you, I thought the crap stuff happened more towards the end. I didn't particularly like the ending. The ending was it was an awful lot of just like fighting and then more fighting and then more fighting. And then more fighting. And I was like, oh my God, we've had 45 minutes of fighting. Can we please make it stop? So I actually thought the earlier things were a lot better than the later things. So we seem to be diametrically opposed there. But and like you, I was like, it's fine. Like, it's okay. Like, I'd give it like a 6 out of 12 sort of thing. Like, it's completely run the mill. Nothing to write home about. That sort of crack. Yeah. Should we get into the details?
Let's get into the details.
Okay, so thoughts, Bill, on the first section, and this is up until they depart their Omaticaya stronghold that they leave for the sea people. So thoughts on that section?
It didn't elicit much of a reaction from me. Okay, so I guess the big thing about Avatar is that it's a technical spectacle. You know, that we saw it in 3D, and that this sequel has been delayed for so long until he felt that he could do justice to his vision, that the technology, the special effects technology, had progressed to the point where he could do justice to his vision, and I didn't feel that impressed or moved by the 3D elements of it. After a while, I kind of stopped noticing. And when I did notice, it was just kind of whatever. And even with that, there were bits where I noticed, and like there was stuff that was still out of focus, or where even when I had the glasses on, there was a superimposition. There was like a double image of something that was in the middle ground. So from a technical point of view, you know, it seemed like it didn't quite deliver what it promised. It was beautiful. certainly.
Agree.
The jungle of Pandora is a lush and well created environment.
Disagree,
But
but anyways.
I think the fidelity is actually so high that it highlights the fact that it's fake. If you get me, it's so real that you can see how fake it looks at times.
Wow, this might be a really interesting episode because I disagree with an awful lot of what you just said there.
Okay.
Yeah, because if I may jump in on the 3D element, Bill had bought 3D tickets, and I had neglected to tell Bill that I hate watching movies in 3D because they make my head hurt. Like, I get actual headaches watching 3D movies. And I believe the last 3D movie I saw was Avatar, like the first one. And after that, I was like, no more. That's not happening. That was an atrocious experience. So I was prepared to have a whopping headache coming out of a 3-hour plus movie in 3D. And that wasn't the case at all. Whatever they've done with the tech surrounding 3D has advanced to such a stage that it doesn't like induce this pain in my head. So I was really loving the 3D. I was like, this is class. I agree that there were parts where you said that there was like a superposition in the middle ground. Totally agree. I did spot that. But the mere fact that I didn't get like borderline ill was someone did something to a camera somewhere and it was great. I think I agree that that Avatar is beautiful. Like it's very beautiful and well done, etc. I don't think it's like a well done world. We'll get more into the biology of it. I hate everything to do with Pandora. Pandora is just like a whole box of stupid. Everything is stupid. Like, you can point to any sort of plant or creature on screen and I just go, that is dumb. Like, it's just so dumb. The whole thing, like, it's really pretty dumb. And it draws me a little bit wild. I have so many notes in front of me here. Like, Navi are dumb. Like, Pandora dogs are dumb. Elu are dumb. Flying fish are dumb. And like, they're all dumb. And like, so I really hate the world. Because it's just like very superficial and a bit cheesy. And that really bothers me. And the other thing, no, that was all the things you mentioned. So yeah, the 3D, I was on board with the 3D. I liked it. I thought it was kind of cool, and it makes me want to see more 3D. Which again, it's mad. We had a very different experience there.
Yeah, I just like, when you see a scene and, there's characters walking through the jungle, and then there's a leaf kind of obscures them. And the fact that that's closer to you in the depth of field, I mean, yeah, maybe that is technically impressive, but I mean, it doesn't enhance my experience in any way. I know the leaf is closer to me because it obscures them, because it is in front of them. It doesn't add anything to the experience. And there were very few shots where I thought, oh wow, that looks amazing. Yeah, it just left me kind of cold.
Yeah, the thing I really want in order for this to be like, I guess I want VR actually is what I'm about to say, but I sometimes find that with 3D I get distracted because, like, say a branch or something will pop out at me and then I'll notice and be like, wow, that's really cool. And then my eyes will move to a different part of the screen, and like IRL, your eyes would refocus the scene, so you're focused on whatever, but that wouldn't occur with 3D because it's just kind of, you're given like a static depth field, if you will. And that kind of messes with my brain and takes me out of the story because I'm going around looking for the 3D-ness of the thing as opposed to actually paying attention to the story.
Yeah.
But
sorry, go on.
No, you go on.
So I don't understand enough of how the eyes work to perceive depth, but I kind of noticed that as well. You can't change the depth that you're focusing on in a 3D thing. It's kind of pre-selected, right? Because the image is whatever it is, and you can't change that by matching it up differently. And also I found that, especially if there's, like, as you say, a branch jutting in, because we're looking at a screen, it's very clear where that ends. So it feels very artificial in that way, that like there's just a branch kind of there and it's clear where the thing ends. If you said there was like VR, as you said, or if you had some kind of goggles or something that it was kind of more encompassing of your field of view, it would be a lot more immersive. But that's difficult to do in a cinema. Sure. I acknowledge.
Yeah. Oh, and there was one more thing that you said that I should have responded to. You were like, it's so real, it seems fake. I had the opposite impression. There were so many times where I was like, I think we've hit peak computer graphics, because like I was spending time watching their pores, like the Navi pores on their skin. And I was like, this is perfect. Like I see no flaw. And like, I was like, this is, I think, the first time in my life that I've just like, my brain has gone, this is real life. And I had to constantly remind it, like, no, it's not. Like these are computer images. This is not real life, Edgar. There are no blue people walking around the place. But it was so real. Like I've never experienced anything more real feeling. So I didn't think it looped around at all to become fake again. Like I was like, my brain was fully tricked.
For me, do you know that thing on TVs, like on newer TVs, where they have motion smoothing or true motion or whatever, which adds extra frames in between? Yeah. I hate that.
I think most people hate that. I don't think you're alone here.
That's what Avatar looked like to me. It was excessively kind of smooth, which just made me feel like I was watching something in true motion.
Were we watching the same film? Because I have a note. Oh God, we're skipping. I was, for the listeners, pre-call, I was like, Bill, we need to keep this to a 3-act structure. We need to do like pre-water part, then the water part, and then the whale part. 3-act structure done. But now I'm already skipping around. There were bits in the final third of the film that were like super unsmooth. And there was like, I think I counted 3 places where I thought there was like serious flaws in individuals where it like felt stuttery. Right. So that's nuts that you're like.
I'm thinking of in the beginning when they were like running through the jungles and stuff. It felt really kind of. It felt like I was watching true motion on a TV.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now it could be a case that I've never actually experienced, because we have like an old television that doesn't have any of that, so I've never actually experienced that like frame blending, adding in extra frames thing. Maybe if I experience that, I'll be like, oh crap, yeah, this is exactly what Avatar is doing. But given what I know, I didn't think that. Now anyway, so that's 3D corner done. Plot points, thoughts on that first act up until Jake and Co leave the forest. Anything in there that stood out?
No, it was a family drama, fairly standard stuff. The teenage kids misbehaving and getting into trouble, and the conflict between the 2 sons. The bad guys from the previous movie came back as avatars, with their memories uploaded. Yeah, I didn't, nothing notable really.
So I would agree with that. I think the whole first act could have been a like Fellowship of the Ring style prologue thing. We didn't need whatever, like the hour of prequel to, because the thing was called Way of the Water, right? Like the whole point we're here is to do the water stuff, and we had so much time building up to
an hour to get to the water.
Yeah, it was mental. And I clocked that the first time, and the second time it felt even more when I watched it. I was like, oh my God, it just keeps going. It sets up, I think the problems in this half is that it sets up an issue throughout the film, in that I think that this film is almost like a soft reboot of the first one. It hits like nearly all the same plot points. We have the same, like you said, the same bad guy in effect came back because his mind was re-uploaded to some other dude. And like they follow the same pattern where it's like fish out of water, learns how to get down with the natives, conquers a significant animal of the region. Humans come in, fights humans using like air quotes native technology. It's the same story, the exact same story, except now we're underwater. And that was set up and started in this first bit. And I remember thinking to myself, oh God, no, please don't do that. And they did. And I was like, shit.
So the first one is like Avatar and it's in the air. And then this one is Avatar in the water. And then they're going to do Avatar underground.
Yes.
And then
in the earth, some might say.
in the Earth, in the Pandora, and then in the fourth movie, everything will change when the fire avatar will attack.
That's it. That's it precisely. Oh God. A couple other notes I have from this first part here. I'm going to leave all the biology, most of the biology dumb stuff until the end as a sort of recap stuff.
Sure.
The fact that there is interbreeding going on between humans and Navi is odd to me and just like breaks belief, because that's just not a thing that could ever feasibly happen. And ergo, like, a lot of the premise of the movie is straight away on weak footing. I don't understand how humans are able to breed with a sophont that is like going to be based on entirely different biochemistry than we are. Like, it's just sophont. That's like it's a word in the spec bio community for like intelligence.
Oh, how do you spell that?
SOPHONT. Because people will sometimes use, or at least the way it's been explained to me, is that people will use sentience sometime, like a sentient life form, but sentience really means just be able to sense. And I think there's some problem with sapience as well, so there was a need to have another term, and that term apparently is sophont. So that is a term I've been using and will continue to use. So it's just weird. It's just weird that you're able to create half-breeds, half human, half Navi. That's insane. Well, we can't breed with dogs, Bill, and they are Earth-like life forms. Why on earth would we go to a separate planet and be able to breed with the species on that planet? That just makes no sense.
Well, I think you're right in the overall thrust of what you're saying, but to Steelman the position,
Steelman.
Yeah, it's the opposite of a straw man. To argue against the it's not exactly humans breeding with Navi. It's the Avatar breeding with a Navi. So it's not like, it's Jake's avatar that he inhabits rather than a human body. So that has presumably Pandoran biochemistry.
Right. But then you would imagine that you wouldn't get half-breeds. You would just get Navi then.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, what part of how is the human DNA being transmitted here? Like, it wouldn't
because
work.
the avatar has the 5 fingers, so maybe that's a trait that is like passed on. Whatever they did to the avatar genetics, to make it 5-fingered, is an inheritable trait.
Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah, okay, maybe, fair enough. But
because it's not actually human and Navi interbreeding. It's an avatar and Navi interbreeding. But my question is, why did they make the avatars able to reproduce?
Yeah, that's a good point.
When they were created.
I guess maybe if I were to try and steelman this position as well, it would be a case of they didn't actively set out to do that. They just like were able to so perfectly clone a Navi that it was able to just it had the reproductive capabilities. Like, they didn't just make a suit; they made like a perfect facsimile of Navi with all its functions,
and an extra finger in each hand.
And an extra. That's the bit I'm kind of like, why do they have extra fingers? I guess maybe that could be like the humans operating the Navi would be more adept if they had more fingers there, but surely
more similar to the body they're used to.
It could be, yeah, but also that would be from the first movie, that would be a sign of them not really being native or local, and it wasn't the whole point as well. I realized the point was they needed the avatars to be able to function in the atmosphere, but also part of it was like a soft power sort of move to try and ingratiate themselves with the Navi. So why deliberately make your avatar look different from the locals? That doesn't really track with me. But I guess maybe I don't know. Maybe it's hard to hold a hammer when you're used to having 5 fingers, but you actually only have 4. I don't know. That whole bit just broke a little bit of suspension of disbelief. Was just kind of like, what the hell is going on here? What else have I got? This is probably, I guess, less for you and more for the listeners. I'm just really confused about the timelines going on here. Like with the Colonel, who the old bad guy. because he died in the first movie. And I don't remember him having a kid in the first movie. Maybe he did. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But now that guy has a kid, this character called Spider. But also that bad guy had his like DNA sent away or something to be preemptively uploaded into a bunch of avatars. So when he died, those avatars could like gain his memories and fill in. And I'm like, I'm sure this all works, but I'm just confused as to what happened off screen in between the first one and the second one. It was a bit disorientating.
I think the idea was that he had a kid that he didn't know about.
Yeah, that feels... I guess, that happens, but it just feels a little bit ham-fisted, kind of like, crap, we need something here. Okay, let's give the bad guy a kid he just didn't know about. Do you know what I mean? It feels like a plot hole type thing.
On that character...
Sorry, yes, go on. On Spider. On Spider,
I was reading up like people's reviews and analyses and stuff of it, and it seemed to be treated like the finding out that he's the Colonel's son is a reveal, like that's a plot moment. And from someone who hadn't watched the first film, I kind of thought that's kind of what I immediately thought. He was the son of the previous villain. I thought that was like totally clear.
I think I might agree with that, because when that dropped, that he was the son of the villain, there wasn't a moment or anything. So I guess I'd be...
Yeah, I don't even really remember it being dropped. I just remember it like people assuming it, I thought. I thought it was kind of assumed throughout, and then it was like, it was correct. There wasn't a moment of reveal, even, that I perceived. It was just, that's who this character is the whole way through.
I agree. I agree with you generally there. What else have I got here? Can I talk about geofiction a little bit?
Edgar,
like
I would love nothing more than for you to talk about geofiction right now.
Okay, so like I appreciate that not everyone cares about planets as much as I do, right? I appreciate that most people go like, I want some sort of alien setting, so let's make it a moon of a gas giant, surrounded by binary stars, probably, that sort of thing, right? And I don't actually think about it beyond that. But I spent a little bit of time trying to think about the actual like setup of the world that was proposed, and we get a shot in this first section of the movie where we see the gas giant that Pandora orbits. Mm-hmm. And the gas giant is a sort of blue-white sort of color. Now again, I'm sure the art department just picked the color, right? But color, folks, has ramifications for the type of gas giant you got going here. And that has ramifications for where that gas giant is placed. I know this is super nerdy, just bear with me. From what I could tell, based on the color, the gas giant is a class 3 gas giant using a thing called the Zdarsky scale. I'll link a Wikipedia page to this in the comments. And it's somewhere between it's not a class 3, sorry, it's a class 4, and that would imply that it has it's very alkali metal rich, which would imply that its temperature is like in the several hundreds degrees Celsius, i.e. it's a gas giant super tight into the star. That would not lead to a habitable moon situation going on. If you're putting habitable moons around gas giants, and those gas giants are in the inner, like in the habitable zone, like the sort of expected color of the gas giants is a sort of like gray-white, given that the composition changes with distance because of like heating and things like that. So if you've got a habitable moon going on the gas giant, and the gas giant is not a sort of gray-white color, and it's in the habitable zone, then you're kind of not barking up the wrong tree there. I realize that affects nothing. It's just the color of the gas giant, but just I wanted to get that out there. Thanks for humouring me, Bill. Next point.
I trust you on that.
And then the other thing is eclipses. This is the first place where we get a planetary eclipse.
Right, that doesn't happen in the original.
Not to my knowledge. It may have, but like I felt going into this, I was like, oh, cool, they're actually dealing with eclipses. That's great. And it's happened throughout the film, and I really enjoyed it because, again, I think a lot of people go like, oh, I want a cool alien setup, so they pick something from the habitable moon to binary stars and then don't really think about it too much after that. And like obviously that would inform a bunch of culture and stuff. Now Cameron doesn't delve so far as to give us any snippets of dialogue that tell us about the culture that these eclipses would form. But he does it a little bit, and I appreciate that. Like they mention later on in the film, they mention like, oh, if you want to visit this place, the best time to do it would be eclipse. And eclipses obviously would be much more common on this world than they were here. And so that was cool. It was kind of like giving a nod to the physical reality of Pandora. It's not just like fancy Earth with stuff in the sky. There was kind of like, it felt a little bit more grounded and real. And that I enjoyed. I could have done a little bit more, like maybe tie in feast days to eclipses, maybe have some sort of celebration on the eclipse, like talk about it a little bit more. But overall, I think that was an improvement on the first, if I recall the first one correctly.
Okay.
Right. And do I have a final point on this section? Short of all the biology is done, which we'll talk about later. No, that was my first section. Too long is the overriding point here.
I liked, you know, when the bad guys land on Pandora and they go to the big bridgehead city, and I liked some of the tech that was in it. That was nicely designed tech, and the first one that we really see that impressed me was when they go to Bridgehead City, and you see Carmela Soprano doing kickboxing in the big robot suit. That was very cool. And I just like seeing Edie Falco and things. I like Edie Falco.
Who is this person?
Edie Falco. You didn't see a lot of her in the film. She was the general or whatever, the human who was above the recom avatars, and she's an actor. She was Carmela Soprano in The Sopranos.
Okay. I never watched The Sopranos, so
Sopranos was really good.
I have a point in some of this tech, and again, it's kind of in the later parts, but I suppose we'll touch on now. Do you remember?
When we move on to Act 2?
No, let's just do it now because I'll forget it.
Okay.
Like, we never stick to any of our formulae or anything here, so, you know. Do you remember when everyone's least favorite billionaire, Elon Musk, was talking about releasing this like robot thing to like help around the house, and it was like a humanoid robot? Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah, it was stupid. Yeah, and the thing that I watched a whole bunch of people talk about it, and the thing that kept coming up, and I agree with these people on this, is that like we as humans seem to have a fascination of like trying to like anthropomorphize our machines in the extent of like trying to make them like us. Like, see, Boston Dynamics is another one, and it's like the human form is kind of like good for what like we needed when we evolved, right? But like machines, the human form won't work well for machines. So like in relation to Elon Musk thing, people were talking about like, I think he talked that like it could be a machine that could go around and like stack shelves in supermarkets, this like literal like humanoid thing. And it's like, well, no, the ideal form for that would be something like on rails that can like zip up and down, like on a 2D plane or whatever. Like, it's really cumbersome making a robot that has human hands that like picks up a can singularly and then like places on a shelf. Like, that's really, really cumbersome. It works for us, but machines don't work that way. And this is a constant thing in fiction where it's like the machines must look like us or things we can identify. And I get why, because it makes them more relatable. But like, there's no need for like the fighter robot to look exactly like the skeleton of a human, you know? It can look entirely different. There's no need for the diving robots later on to look functioning like crabs. There's no need for robots to have like 5 digits on 2 hands. Like, that's just kind of weird and limiting. And I find it to be like a bit of a cliche that we could maybe do with moving away from a little bit, and we can like truly build like cool looking machines in science fiction that aren't just like, this is the crab robot, this is the human robot, and they're all pretty crap at the jobs that they're intended for because their prime focus appears to be mimicking Earth-like forms. Do you agree with any of that?
Parts of it.
Parts
The
of it.
thing about designing if you want a machine that's going to navigate a world designed for humans, then it does make sense to have something that is human formed. If you want to build a robot on rails to stack shelves, then you have to install rails. You have to build all of that infrastructure. Whereas if you have something that doesn't need that infrastructure, that will fit through doors, will be able to go up steps and things, there has already been a couple of billion years of evolution that has created a form that does that. Or maybe to put it more accurately, the infrastructure that we have is built around that form already. So there is a sense to having something that works that way.
No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to disagree with you there. Okay, let me try and paint an analogy here. Imagine we didn't have Hoovers, right?
Right.
And I took the sci-fi writer's methodology of like the machine must basically look like a human. What we'll do is we'll invent like a machine that looks exactly like a human, that bends down and like sweeps up dust or picks up dust in a manner that we do, because we're aware of that. Like that's what we do, and we like that clearly must be the best thing to do. Whereas obviously that's nonsense, because our Hoovers don't look like humans. They're like little suction boxes, and that's what makes them better at their task than what we can do. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but I mean, that doesn't change the fact that if you want something to navigate a human world and be multi-purpose, then the human shape is already designed to do that. So it is not a bad starting point. And in, like you bring up Boston Dynamics. If you want to build robots to kill people that the government are going to buy, then it needs to be something that can fit into buildings. So that's why they have human shapes and dog shapes that can work in that environment. Whereas if you've got a tank can't do that. If you've got like a thing on wheels, that's not going to be able to go upstairs in a little apartment building. They're into caves and things.
No, I mean, no, but it's not like the only form that can navigate our human designed world is literally a human.
Sure, but the fact of using a human form isn't itself necessarily a flaw, because it has situations where it does make sense to use it, because we're not doing it in a totally blank world. We're doing it in a human world with human infrastructure and human buildings.
All right, no, sorry, I'm sorry. Can I fight you some more on this? Sorry, just hold on.
Absolutely not. No, I refuse.
But like, no, so we like taking the Boston Dynamics example here. Like, obviously there must be some utility in having like dog or human shaped forms, because they wouldn't have stuck with it.
Exactly.
But like, but hold on.
That's my entire point.
No, but hold on. Boston Dynamics have been around doing this since, I think, like really early, like in the early 90s, like super, super early. And it's taken them like, what, 30, 40 years to get like functioning humanoid robots. And it's like, my point would be, okay, hold on a second, folks. It's taken us that long to be able to get a robot that can navigate human terrain that looks like a human. Maybe, just maybe, our assumption that it needs to look like a human was slightly flawed. And if we had something that maybe didn't look like a human and didn't have to deal with the problems of bipedalism and the instability of bipedalism, particularly when there's a load of mechanical parts that you need support. If we just went with, say, like a small tank-looking thing, not like, you know, something on like treaded wheels that could navigate around, like, say, rubble to be a bomb disposal thing, like, would that not have more utility? But it's like, we seem to always want to be like, no, like the peak form is the human. And it's like, well, sure, if you started that with that preconceived, if you start with the conclusion that is the case, but I think that's flawed. And I think Boston Dynamics kind of sort of proves that, because it's taken them literal decades to get a functioning stand-up robot when like they could have been making other things that worked in that time frame. Yeah,
but if the goal is to make something that can go around rubble and go down corridors and jump across gaps, the human form is already a form that can do that. A thing on treads, a thing on wheels cannot.
No, but you could. No, but like, no, hold on, no, Bill. That's so limited because oh my god, we need to get back to top of
It's
Avatar.
the opposite of limited.
No. If you have a small, like, just imagine a small little tank thing on treads, right? And it can go down. It can go on rubble. Like tanks do this already. Like we have many instances of stuff with wheels going upstairs. Like you can BMX a bike upstairs when you just give it enough input power. It could do it there. If it comes to a gap, it could have some sort of like extendy arm mechanism or whatever that could like get a footing on the other side of the gap and like swing it across or whatever. Like a human jumping is like jumping a gap is an extremely like mechanically kind of weird thing, and like trying to replicate that in machine form is, the evidence points out, extremely difficult and awkward to the point where it takes like many decades to even come close to getting it. Whereas I'm kind of like,
I think that's a bit unfair because it's like if you say they started in the 90s, like that means they were working with computers in the 90s that weren't able to deal with that calculation. It's not just a problem with the form.
Oh no, I think it's largely a problem with the form because like bipedalism is inherently very unstable.
Right.
Right. So like you're like this is our form. This is the form we're going to go with. This form is horrifically unstable. We need to spend 30 years trying to get some sort of sense of stability in this, where it's just kind of like, just start with a different form. The form is flawed here, folks. I don't think it's a thing of the computers couldn't do the calculations to make it happen.
They certainly couldn't.
But the problem, but for me, the inherent problem is the form and our preoccupation with like things need to be humanoid because we've all watched a little bit too much Star Wars and Star Trek when we were younger.
No, because
it's like building a postal sorting machine.
You'd have to go through the process of finding what form does work in every different thing. And if you're saying like having that every unit has to carry around extender arms that will be able to support its own weight on both sides when it's in the middle of a gap, like, or just have legs that can do all of that.
Yeah, but the legs are the okay. Tell me.
But the legs are difficult to do, and when you have them, they solve a lot of other stuff in a world which is designed for legs. It's like you need to hammer a nail, so you're trying to find the best kind of shoe to do it with instead of using a hammer.
I mean, I could very easily flip that around the other way to make my point. But look, no, we're off track. No, Bill, let's pass this on to the listeners, right? Let's pass it on to listeners. Listeners, just let us know what you think. We need to talk about Avatar. We're 40 minutes in, Bill.
Okay, and about the giant kickboxing robot thing in it being human shaped. That's training for using a recombitant.
Yeah, okay, so that is the one that I had almost no problems with. I had problems later on with little crab robots.
Did you notice why I kept giggling whenever I saw them?
Yes, so I'm kind of surprised you had this reaction, because I thought you were like laughing at the fact, for the same reason I would be laughing at them. It's like, oh boy, they created a crab. That's very weird.
I mean, it's a little bit less sensible because humans aren't used to piloting crab-shaped things. But I guess I'm not going to defend this deeply, but I guess there's maybe a similar argument that crabs are suited to working in aquatic environments and scavenging and stuff. So maybe there's a sense to it there. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So just to wrap it up without rehashing the conversation, again, we're passing on to listeners. I thought 90% of the robots in this were just a little bit dumb. And it was kind of like, we have the spider robot, we have the crab robot, we have the human robot. And it's like, I see what you're doing here. You're taking shapes that we're all familiar with and just making them robots because, like, rule of cool, and not really paying attention to the actual needs that the situation calls for. But you can fight me on that.
Can and will.
Okay, first part done. That is up until the Jake and Co leave the forest, yeah?
Yep, done.
Okay, part 2, Avatar, Way of Water. This is the middle bit of the movie. This is from when the Jake, Sully and Co leave the forest up until roughly the point that the Tokun are introduced. These are the like sentient whale creatures. So again, Bill, thoughts on this section? What sort of points have you got?
Again, plot-wise, nothing in particular really. Like, it's a bit of family drama stuff. It's fine. Yeah, that's kind of it. Like nothing stood out plot-wise. Again, there were bits of this were really beautiful. The underwater stuff was lovely, lovely looking. Again, the 3D didn't do much to enhance it for me, but it was visually very pretty. I liked some of the creature design. There was one creature in particular I liked, which I have looked up since and discovered is called the pincer fish.
Pincer fish. Hold on.
Yeah.
I can almost guarantee you my thoughts are going to be that this is awful. Pincer fish, Avatar 2. Oh yeah, we see that float across the screen at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, we see it a bunch of times. And I'm pretty sure I saw an Anomalocaris at one point, but I haven't been able to find out what that was.
Oh yeah, these things are baller.
Yeah. I didn't show you. I have a knitted one of those. I didn't show you when you were down.
I have a pet Anomalocaris. Links in the show notes, this, folks.
I saw something that looked a lot like that. And I was like, oh, cool, Anomalocaris, my fave.
That's really interesting. That like the life on Pandora should look anything like Earth-like life. That's.
I mean, okay, come on. I mean, that's the premise we're going in with. That's. We've already got like bipedal 12-foot aliens, like so.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's do this here. Okay, so any sort of criticism around the biology on Avatar has to be centered around goals, like what the goals are of the work, right? If the goals are that we just want to make like moderately strange looking aliens that look familiar, sure, great. I'm going to criticize Avatar, but it's been explained to me that at least in the first one, part of the marketing hype around it was that they apparently Cameron like assembled a crack team of biologists and they came up with like, a realistic depiction of how life could be on another planet. If that's the case and they did that, this is a load of nonsense, right? Because again, if the goal is we're going to show you like a proper spec bio project here, this is a failure on all accounts. And like, I don't even think I need to really state this out loud, but here we go. The Na'vi are obviously immensely stupid because they are just humans. Like, they're aliens that have mammary glands, that are bipedal, that have navels, that have everything that humans do. They are functionally just humans with blue skin, a couple of dots, and a thing sticking out of the back of the head. That is absurd.
And a tail.
That is utterly absurd.
One less finger.
And one less finger. That is obviously utterly absurd. If we find life on another planet and that life happens to be macro life, the chances of it being humanoid are basically nil, right? Essentially, yeah. And then the all other life then on the planet is just useless as well. Like, all the fish have evolved from Earth-like fish that have the same jaw structure that our fish ancestors had, that gave rise to the Earth, the Terran jaw, so to speak, that exists on this world. So somehow the ancestral fish to all of us or whatever made its way to this planet, and then evolution occurred along the exact same lines to give rise to basically the exact same structures. We have manta ray looking things here. We have whales that look just functionally like whales. And all it is like, we'll stick an extra leg on them, or this is for the dog. We'll stick an extra leg on the dog, or give them an extra set of eyes. The whole thing is a load of feckin' nonsense. And again, it all depends on goals. Like, I would never criticize the other Avatar, the real Avatar, for having like bad animals, because at no point did anyone claim that they were going to make like a hyper realistic world here. They were very clearly just like, we're going to take some of your favorite animals and just smack them together and make fun things. Cool. Not a bother. But if Cameron did assemble a crack team of experts to try and make realistic wildlife, this is crap. The whole thing is crap. There is not a single redeeming feature about anything on this planet. It's just such awful, superficial bollocks. I hate it so much.
It's realistic in the sense that it's just the same as what is real.
Yeah, plus
Not like in any interesting spec bio way.
yeah, plus an extra leg or two. I will say though, one thing I'll give it credit for, and maybe credit isn't even due here because again, it's just take art but add bits. At the very least, you can kind of get a sense of common descent from the animals on Pandora. Because like the dog thing, for example, like it has the two sets of eyes. So does the whale thing. So does the emu that they ride. You can kind of see that there are traits that are kind of held in common. So you kind of get a feel that this all arose out of a common ancestor, which is not a thing that one can say for all spec bio projects that have been created throughout the years. So that's at least something, but that's kind of like happened by accident because again, they clearly just took like already realistic scenario, Earth, and just shoved an extra eye on it. And it's so lazy. It's just so lazy. Just come on. It's like the equivalent of Conlang. We have a bunch of people out here doing spec bio. Get someone else to do it. Just get someone else to come up with the wildlife and it'll be great. It's just flora and fauna. And then Bill, sorry, I'm just going to go off on one here. The bioluminescence Bill. I hate it so incredibly much. It's not even funny. It's like, why in the name of Christ does everything have to glow? Like, what is the benefit of this? Like, evolutionarily. Like, this is just rule of cool. Like, it'd be really cool if all the plants glowed. And it's like, okay, but like, this is dumb. Just everything glows. Everything is bioluminescent. And it's like, it's so cliched. It's just, I hate it. And I hate now that I've gotten into spec bio that I can see these things. The first time around, I was kind of like, yeah, I guess it'd be kind of unusual to have humans. But like now I kind of like having studied a bit, like really understand. And I can't watch this film in seriousness now because it's just such a load of bollocks. But anyway, I'm sorry. Rant done.
Yeah, like it's silly.
It is silly.
It's just silly.
It's silliness that takes itself very seriously, which is the worst type of silliness.
Yeah. The film, it does take itself very, very seriously, and I guess it kind of has to for the explicit inspirations and stuff behind it, but also it is a science fiction film where they've kind of not put a huge amount of seriousness into the science fiction part.
Yes, correct. I would say it's more science fantasy at this stage.
Yeah. In effect, absolutely.
For sure. We've met the Metcaina. Any thoughts on these boils? These, for the listeners who haven't seen this, if you are still listening, these are the turquoise Navi. These are the Navi that live in faraway island chains, and they are like our friendly forest Navi, except they have turquoise skin, and they have like a more eel-like tail to help them swim, and they also have some further adaptations for swimming.
Their forearms are kind of broader and flatter.
Yeah, what did we think about this? The Pandora has the concept of race.
Mixed. Like, it is good that the indigenous sentience, what was it, sophants? Was that the word?
Sophants, yeah.
The indigenous sophants aren't a monoculture, aren't all identical.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, like, if we just accept the premise of the film as it is, that they're significantly biologically different in order to live in the water, yeah, fair enough. It was a bit weird that, they're so biologically different, but seemingly have a pretty much near identical culture.
Mm-hmm.
In that they can interface, kind of come away with the feeling that the creators think all indigenous people are sort of interchangeable, which I'm not super on board with.
Nor am I. If I could jump here and say this, this is kind of absurd because it's like, it's shown, and I think it's explicitly stated that they're like, these people live far, far away. Like, no one comes into none of the forest Navi come in contact with the sea Navi basically ever. But like they rock up on their shores, Jake and Co, and like they all speak the same language, and they all like understand and have like a culturally significant terms. Like they said something like "we seek," and they insert made up word here that's basically refuge. Why would this translate cross-culturally? Like, that's the equivalent of, like, me as a European, if I just got on a boat and sailed to some island in Kiribati and was like, I claim squatters' rights, and everyone goes, oh, squatters' rights. Like, why do they have the concept of squatters' rights? Like, why would I know what their culturally significant concepts are, and why would vice versa? This makes no sense.
I guess if the moon is literally alive and you can plug your head directly into it, maybe cultural concepts disseminate more broadly and uniformly.
So yeah, there is an awful lot that can be explained away by just like, the magic tree that connects everything, which is a bit lame. I think it's a little bit lame to have to like rely on that sort of explanation. But I just thought this was a good opportunity for a second conlang to creep in. Maybe it didn't, I missed it, but I felt like they were all speaking the same language, and that was a bit sad. And later on, it also appears that the Tokun also speak the same language as the...
Oh my god, yes.
As the Navi. And I'm like, could we have had a third conlang? That would be kind of dope. But it looks like they didn't do that. Now, I could be wrong.
Yeah, how does the young fella understand what the Tolkun is saying?
Okay, no, hold on. Let's park that. We'll do a little bit more chronologically. I have two things to bring up before the Tolkun show up.
Even the first Tolkun.
Even the first Tolkun, correct? Yeah. This is when they were doing the sort of like training sequence where Jake's children were learning how to integrate into this society. I found the excessive use of the word "bro" to be really annoying. The kids keep being like, "Bro, you can't go there, bro." And it's like, it's not a big deal. It was just really irritating that they kept being like that. And then the other thing I was going to bring up is that a cool point, but also I think a missed opportunity. There was an opportunity for a sign language conlang. What is a con? What's the word for this? Because I've never built a constructed sign language. Is there a word like a con? Something.
I mean, it's still a conlang.
It's still a conlang. That's fair. Because I was like, oh, cool, they have like this sign language that they use to communicate underwater because, sound doesn't permeate through water so well. That sounds really great. And then watching them do their hand signals, it was just, again, really lame because at one point, I think they had to convey like, he is strong or something to one of them in this underwater sign language. And the person doing the speaking just like raised their clenched fist in a sort of like Rosie the Riveter sort of manner. And I was like, why would that be their concept of strength? Like that doesn't necessarily follow. That's a very like Earth thing. And again, I guess that it's a film and like it needs to lean on things that we're aware of for it to make sense. If you were to present anything that's truly alien, no one will watch it. It'd be very isolating. I get that, but it's just kind of like too often it was just, it went back to the same old thing of like, this is just Earth, but with funny colors and extra eyes. And it was like this. So I was like, damn it. Sorry, go on.
Also, because the sign language was subtitled, like it didn't matter whether it made visual sense to us. I mean, it wasn't even helpful for like explaining what they were doing. No, it was just, we had subtitles so they could have used whatever signs.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a missed opportunity. We could have had 2 extra conlangs and a sign language lang in there, and from what I could tell, that wasn't the case. And I was like, oh lads, come on, if you're going to spend like a whole $1 jillion on this, just employ David Peterson again. I know, I realize he didn't do the first one, but like who's the guy who did Navi? What was his name? Hold on.
Peterson?
No. It wasn't Peterson. It's like the one movie or one bit of content Peterson isn't involved.
Paul Frommer.
Paul Frommer, that's right. Just get Paul to come up with more languages. That would be kind of dope to see. But yeah, anyhow. So that was that. Now the Tolkun enter. Tell me this point about the Tolkun, the whale people.
So, in the film, there's like a little conflict between the original Avatar teenagers, from the forest, and what's the sea people clan called again?
The Metcaina.
The Metcaina, between the Amaticaya and the Metcaina people, between the teenagers, there's a little bit of a conflict, and the Metcaina take one of Jake Sully's sons out to hunt in like the forbidden area beyond the reef, and abandon him there, and he gets attacked by a big shark, and then a big whale.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, the shark. Yeah.
Yeah. Gets attacked by a shark, and then a big whale comes and kills the shark and saves him, and then they become friends. And we're like, he's able to talk. Loak, the son, is able to talk to the Tulkun, the whale guy, and it's just kind of, there's no kind of revelation that this creature is sapient and capable of speech, and Loak can understand his speech, and it was all just very kind of out of the blue.
Yeah, I agree.
It kind of like, we were assumed that it was, like, were we supposed to just assume it was a sapient, or how did Loak know that they were sapient?
And also,
yeah, it was really weird.
And also, the term Tulkun wasn't mentioned prior to Loak getting back from that and chatting with the other teenagers. And they just kind of casually dropped it, like, oh, you met Tulkun. And that wasn't explained, really. And like the first time I watched this, when I first clocked they were actually properly sentient, it wasn't until the whaling scene at the very, very end. Because the spirit tree thing that connects all life on this planet, that's a very simple explanation about like what's can go on here, like why can everyone talk or whatever, because everyone's like mystically connected or whatever. It's not immediately obvious that they're another sentient, and that was never talked about or explained until like literally an hour later. And there was no setup to the introduction of this new sentience, and then the sort of like explanation part did very little to explain what the hell was going on, and it was really disorientating and confusing. But I will say, one cool thing here, non-human sentience. That's cool. That's fun. A non-human sophont, that is cool, because again, too many people assume that if you're going to have a sentient creature, they're going to be bipedal, they're going to have opposable thumbs, they're going to come from a brachiating ancestor, etc. Like essentially they're going to be us. And a depiction of a non-human sophont is cool. I enjoy that. And I think the choice of having like a whale sort of creature is quite good, because like even lay people will kind of associate lots of marine creatures as being extremely intelligent. And so that kind of follows a little bit. So that's kind of cool. A kind of, not a big issue, but an issue I have that I can kind of convince myself isn't an issue is that it's kind of unrealistic from a biology standpoint to have two sophonts inhabit the one planet. The kind of expected thing that biologists will predict is that there will be one sophont that will come to dominate the sort of like air quotes intelligent niche. So that's a little bit weird to have that. But I think the fact that it's in the water and like the difference between land and water is so extreme that you can functionally think of them as being like two separate realms. So I'm willing to get on board with that a little bit. But in general, two sapients or two sophonts on the one planet, if there isn't like colonization going on, like interplanetary colonization, it's a little bit dubious. But yeah, like I said, I'm okay with that.
I mean, that seems like a bit of a stretch to say, because, you know, we've only got us to base it on.
Yeah, so any talk of anything to do with intelligence is can be said to be a bit of a stretch, because sample set of one. But there are sort of like things we can draw from us that it's reasonable to assume would hold. It is, but like, and it's not opposable thumbs and bipedalism as people may think. But yeah. So and another thing on the Tulkun, when Loak meets this Tulkun guy, there was a really dumb scene that I think was meant to feel like impactful or something, but it just looks stupid, where Loak and Tulkun become friends, and Loak like holds his fin, and there's a shot from under the water, and it is meant to be all triumphant and stuff, but it just looks stupid. Like, it looks really stupid. I think you laughed at that at one point in the cinema. It was just...
Very possibly.
It was just a bit dumb. It was just a bit dumb altogether. And this whole training section, this whole bit, middle bit is just, it's essentially a rehash of the first one. You know, where Jake Sully was learning how to get down with the natives, so to speak. Now the kids are learning to get down with the natives, and almost sort of beat for beat, it happened this way. And I was like, why are we soft rebooting? But I guess I'm willing to give, because I feel like their plan is to make a bajillion Avatar movies here. And much like with a trilogy, the sort of second book is always a bit tricky because it's always kind of like filler sort of stuff to get to the end portion. So I'm willing to give it a bit of leeway here and be like, look, the second movie is awkward. If a third movie then kind of like wraps up and delivers, I'll be like, sure, fine. But yeah, this is classic second movie sort of stuff going on here, where it's like, what the hell do we do? We don't know. No, let's do the first one again and figure a way of like wrapping it all up in the next one. Yeah. Any further thoughts?
As far as we've gotten to here, no, I don't think so. Yes, I've written, how on earth were we supposed to know that the whale Tulkun were sentient? That was my note on that one. No, that's it for me so far, I think.
Yeah, so what do I have here? There's a scene where, again, following with it's beat for beat, the first movie, there's a scene where all the teenagers go to the underwater sacred tree. So we have Sacred Tree 2.0, and I'm like, oh. And again, I guess that makes sense. Like, you know, every culture on Pandora might settle itself about a sort of religiously significant site, and that would be a sort of like mini sacred tree, I guess. But it didn't really help with the whole, like, it's just the first one again. There was
it's called the Tree of Souls, the underwater one.
Yes, Tree of Souls. That's it. Yeah, I just wrote in derogatory terms here, Spirit Tree 2.0. There around this time we had the questioning about the lineage of Kiri, what's her name? What's the actor's name?
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver's virgin birth thing. Or maybe not so virgin, who knows. This whole bit questioning Kiri's who the father was, it felt a little bit like J.J. Abrams' Mystery Box to me, where it's like, it's a little bit dropped and not really dealt with. Like, I have a guess who the father is. I think it's probably the planet itself, like it's the tree, the whatever, the interconnected energy or whatever. But it's kind of
Ewa.
like... Ewa, that's it. And it kind of made... It's just like they questioned it, and then it just was left there. And I feel like, oh crap, this is something that's there for the third movie to resolve. And I kind of hate this sort of Abrahamic... Is that the right way of saying it? Like Abrams?
Abrams-esque,
maybe, yeah. This sort of like Abrams-esque narrative device. I kind of hate it. It just feels like clickbait, and it's a bit annoying. So I don't know. Do you feel the same way?
Setting up mysteries and never fully resolving them,
or setting them up in a sort of really obvious, like, hey, this is a mystery, and then resolving it like a movie or two later. Like, right. I'm fine with a mystery being set up that's kind of like goes under the radar, and then at the end you're like, oh, that was actually set up. Like, that's class. But when it's shoved in your face to be like, mystery alert, and then you don't get the payoff until either never or way down the road, that drives me a little bit daft. Yeah, thoughts on that? Do you concur?
I mean, I don't have the context of the first film to fully get what was going on with Kitty. Like, they were doing some kind of fairly standard angsty teenager stuff there, that sort of ended with autistic people are magic as the as the final beat, which again, not super keen on.
Yup. Although in this case, it's like it's almost like magic people are magic, because again, working on the assumption that her father is in fact like the god tree. You could read it, like, if you're to be charitable, you could read it as a like magic people are magic and not autistic people are magic. But I
know, but like her neurodivergence and kind of the way she's different from the other teenagers and the way she doesn't fit in, and I mean it follows a lot of the same beats as portrayals of neurodivergence in media, I think.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm not sure I agree fully on that. I
Okay.
would have read her as just being more like aloof than neurodivergent, just being
Okay.
like a lost, grumpy teenager who doesn't really fit in. I honestly didn't pick up any neurodivergent energy at all there.
Okay.
But I
Fair
could be
enough.
wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, like, look at the track record of these films is that like if there is some sort of minority group that you can kind of like stereotype and pigeonhole, it's going to be done. So like, I think your reading may not be incorrect. I just didn't pick up on it.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
The around this time, Spider he's now like teamed up with in a sort of very odd, not really well explained way with the bad guys, and he's kind of showing them about. And
Well, I mean, he was essentially kidnapped by them and kind of forced to.
he was, but like I think they were trying to like do a sort of like he feels a little bit at home because like the Avatar lead dude is also kind of sort of his father. So he was like he found a family there, but like again, it just wasn't convincingly done. Maybe they're trying to do Stockholm syndrome. I don't know. I found Spider to be superfluous to all requirements, really. But there was a scene where they're on the bad Avatar is flying with Spider on the mythical bird thing, and he's learning Napvi, and he's like teaching him how to say, I think it's like how are you or how are you doing, and he's like, well, ngati kamea, right? And then the jarhead goes, well, nati kamea, and then he's like, no, not natty, ngati. And my note here was like, yes, velar nasals in odd set positions are tricky for some. And it's like the classic thing of like you first get into conlang and you're kind of like, wait, I could put the ng sound at the start of the word. This is dope. And then loads of people struggle with it. And I found it was like a little window into the conlangosphere. I thought that was kind of fun. What do we have else after this? Oh yeah, I have loads of comments here about just like icky sort of like treatment of indigenous people. Like Spirit Sister. They're saying
So
that
much.
you what?
So much.
There is so much, yeah. They kept saying like the Metaina say that they are like spirit sisters and spirit brothers to the Tokun, and again that plays into sort of like how the white man thinks about the culture of various indigenous American tribes and the whole spirit animal sort of thing. And again, also beyond that, it's kind of like, why would they use the same language? They're aliens. They're not Earth people. It's just again, it was just.
I'm willing to translation convention that away. Like it's just they're speaking in Navi, but we're hearing it in English, so it's just it's a familiar enough term for us to get.
Sure. It's a racist translation.
Yeah. Now this I have quite a few points on this.
Do.
So the I've forgotten their name again. Metakaina?
Metkaina.
The Metkaina. The Metkaina are meant to be more Maori inspired.
Yeah.
And the guy who plays the leader of the Metkaina is a Maori actor.
Okay.
And he has said, I'm really excited to be able to do this and kind of portray, do this portrayal in of elements of our culture, something to that effect. It's also gotten a lot of criticism from some Maori groups. And I didn't know this at the time, but James Cameron said some weird stuff around the first film as well, which was heavily criticized by Native Americans. So, like, this film is clearly meant to be explicitly anti-colonial, and it is meant to be sympathetic and all of that. It doesn't necessarily get it right. It's trying, but it doesn't necessarily get it right.
Sure.
There's the whole thing about how the Na'vi, like, they can literally plug into the other animals and the plants and like literally communicate with the planet, because the planet is conscious. That was a little uncomfortable for me, playing with ideas of how in like magical indigenous people who have been othered by colonizers, now they're just closer to nature.
Yeah.
And that's taking that kind of weird racist perception of people and making it a scientific fact, which was my first bit that I was like, oh, that's kind of not great. And then thinking more about it, having that kind of attitude sort of absolves colonizers that, oh, you know, those people, they're just different. They're just more in tune with nature. They're just kind of magical, as opposed to, no, they're just actually smart and know not to kill everything. And they have lived there for longer, and they figured out how things work in this environment, in this part of the world. And just putting a magical explanation on that is really kind of, it is gross, and it is, you know, it is giving them this other status, but also it absolves the people who have gone and messed things up of what they do, in a sense. You know what I mean?
I mean, kind of. I wouldn't go so far as to say it absolves them, because even if their thinking is like they're just magic and not like sentient or whatever, or smart or intelligent, that still doesn't mean one should, like, you know, bulldoze their backyard.
Sure, but not. I don't mean it in that sense. I mean it in like, oh well, I mean, what else could we have done? We're just, you know, we're not able to be like that because they're just, you know, they're more in tune with nature.
I see. Yeah.
And as I said earlier, I did find it a little bit weird how to make all of the like the different indigenous cultures kind of samey. I know they are different biologically, and there is kind of a bit of a clash between them. But, you know, as we said, they have the same language and the shared cultural understandings, and you know, the two inspiration cultures live very, very far apart, and they're not any more related to each other than any other groups of peoples that far apart. So I felt that a little uncomfortable.
I agree. On a way more superficial critique on the sort of depiction of indigenous cultures here, again, these are aliens, right? Why do they have Maori tattoos, like, or face paintings? If they're not, they shouldn't have that same design culture. This is absurd. Why at one point they all started doing like a pseudo haka, and it's like, why do they have the concept of
the sticking the tongue out thing?
The sticking the tongue out thing. Why do they have that concept? Like, that concept is tied to, like, as far as I'm aware, someone who is Maori can correct me. I think it's tied to the concept of battle and, like, intimidation of opponents, and how they thought about intimidating opponents, and you have to look scary and all that sort of stuff. Why is that the same here? Like, they do not know what the Maori is. They have had, I'm assuming, no contact with Maori people on Earth. They should have a radically different culture, but it's not. It's just Maori.
Yeah.
And I wonder, this is because so often when people do the sort of like seafaring, like air quotes, tribal people, it's often depicted as like a pastiche of Maori culture. I wonder, it has to be a case that other Polynesians are like roll their eyes every time they see this. They're like, someone in Samoa or whatever is kind of like, why is it always the people on New Zealand? Like, it's always,
we exist too.
Yeah, we exist too, because it always defaults to Maori. And I think that's probably because I think there's a lot of shared tradition in that area. Or at least I know from watching sports that lots of Polynesian teams have haka-like dances. I don't know the correct term for what that is, but they all have like variants on that. So I guess the ignorant white man will look at that and be like, sure, they're all the same. But they're obviously not. And I'm sure, again, someone in Samoa is like, we're not all Maori. Please stop. I'm sure that's the case. But I hated that when they just started doing the haka, because I was like, no, they would not know what this is. Please stop. This is, not great. Not great at all.
I guess it's not really our place to comment too much about it. I would be interested to read more Maori perspectives and other indigenous, like, you know, Native American perspectives on it, because they were so much the focus of the first one, and the kind of the stories is still very focused on kind of what Europeans did in North America. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear a bit more. Are we kind of in the third act now, aren't we?
Well, we're literally the third act kind of starts with the wailing. We're kind of there.
Okay.
Okay. Act number 3. From whaling to end. Thoughts, Bill?
Okay. Thoughts?
Do you have any?
No, I didn't hear what you said. I was asking if that was what you'd said. Sorry.
Oh,
Let's
no,
take
I
that
said-
again.
No, let's leave it in. Thoughts, Bill?
It's kind of like Moby Dick. It's the end of Moby Dick from the whale's point of view.
It is a bit, isn't it?
And the captain whaler gets killed by the whale and even loses a limb doing so, which I thought was fun. I actually cheered because I could see that coming when his arm got like pulled up against the structure, like with the cable wrapped around it, and then it got pulled off and his arm flew off into the air. I was like, yay! Not just for the catharsis of seeing the evil whaler get killed, just because I was excited for that visual. So in the ending, the bad guys, the marine avatars, they track down where Jake Sully is hiding out, and they enlist these whalers to help them hunt him down, to massacre a load of whales and draw out the Na'vi to recapture Jake Sully. And it's obviously, whaling is bad, and it's meant to be like the whaling of the 1800s, and also in Spider's reaction to how they massacre all these whales and then they just extract one substance from the brain and they leave the rest of it to rot, is kind of like stories of what Europeans did to buffalo or bison in North America. I can't remember which the right term is.
Wait,
instead of
But did bison have immortality juice in their heads?
Bison didn't have immortality juice that we know of.
Right.
But they were driven to near extinction, so it may be hard to tell.
What's the correct? Is it bison or is it buffalo? Does that matter, that distinction?
I have just looked it up. Sometimes colloquially referred to as an American buffalo, but it is a bison. A buffalo is a different clade.
Okay.
Buffalo are African and Asian.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So strictly speaking, bison. So they kill all these tulkun to extract Amarita. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I have amaretto written down here, but I'm pretty sure it's drink.
Amaretto is like an almond liqueur, I think. Yeah.
I think so, because I remember I shot a film noir in college, which you should remember. You were a cameraman for a little bit of it. And
Sure was.
there was a scene where I went to a bar to chat up a dame, and I was like, I ordered myself an amaretto sour with a twist. So I was like, it's definitely not amaretto. It might be amarita. I can't remember.
It's Amarita, yeah.
Amarita.
Amarita.
Yeah. And so this brain juice or whatever, or actually it's not actually in its brain. It just I think they just said it's some gland, but they can only get at it through the hard palate. And this affords humans immortality. It stops aging, apparently. Now I'm not sure actually if it's immortality or just it stops the look of aging. Either way, it's something that humans want a lot and are willing to. Go on.
It says in the wiki here, it's said to be able to stop human aging completely. That's what I took away from it as well. That it wasn't just a cosmetic thing. That it actually stopped the aging.
So Cameron has been reading some Kim Stanley Robinson of late.
How do you reckon?
Isn't in the Mars trilogy? Don't they have like the thing that stops human aging?
It's not exclusive to the Mars trilogy.
No, I know, but that just popped into my head. I was like, it's the immortality juice from Red Mars. Lol.
Well, they didn't have an immortality juice as much as a genetic thing, a genetic fix, as far as I remember.
Yeah, they made their own immortality juice, whereas this one is naturally occurring. But
if you can't make your own immortality juice, hunted is fine.
So go on. You're explaining this part.
So that's why there are whalers on Pandora. Again, the timeline here is a little peculiar. If they've only been, because they come back at the start, the humans come back at the start after like a decade or 15 years or something away. It must be about 15 years. And then a year later, after Sully runs away and a year passes, there's like this large, well-established whaling industry, and they know what the stuff does, and it's being exported back to Earth. Seems a little quick to do in a year, but anyway, that's a minor quibble. And so they massacre a load of whales, and then they find out where Sully is, and they attack a load of falcon near there, and that draws the Na'vi out into the protracted final confrontation of the battle of the film, which is like about 40 minutes long.
Protracted is, oh my god, protracted is the understatement of the century. It just went on and on and on.
For all that I enjoyed it, it did go on a bit. Yes, I will certainly agree with that.
And it felt like there was a really natural stopping point at like midway through the protracted final conflict thing, where I was like, oh, we're done now, and it just kept going. And I was like, we should have killed it at that point. Like, we didn't have to go through this. I really felt this film. Maybe this is something that I should reserve for the end, but here we are. It needed a second pass. Like, someone needed to just edit it down a little bit more. It felt like it wasn't as refined as it could be. On the whaling, right? I like this. I share a lot of your not the concern you brought up about the timeline seems a bit weird. I noted that as well. But I really, I like the anti-whaling message. I think that's cool. I really enjoy, this is going to sound horrible, when science fiction depicts the hunting of sophons, of sentient species. That's class. Because I think too often, not all the time, but a lot of the time, when there's like aliens depicted in science fiction and fantasy, they are one, like humans, and two, these like holier than thou douchebags who come to the humans to give them philosophy lessons about why humans are terrible, etc. And they're treated as kind of like god creatures a little bit. And I personally love the sort of, I guess, trope of humans either don't know that they're hunting full-on intelligent species or do know and don't give a crap. And that's really dark. And I think there's a lot of play that can be had there. I think that's great. I really, really enjoy that. It's a really dark, morbid storyline. And I kind of wish a lot more of the film was about that.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting thing to explore more deeply.
Yeah. Because it's and another thing, this is kind of sort of spoilers for upcoming things I would like to do on the channel, but another thing that I find is like a sort of like dark horror sort of thing is not only the hunting of a sentient species, of a sophont, the domestication of a sentient species. That is some dark nonsense there. And I think,
like, for example...
No, you make that the premise. Like, humans go to a world, there's some creature there that they happen to domesticate. Again, either they know that they are sentient, or either they don't know that they're sentient, or they don't care, and they just domesticate them anyways because humans are greedy. And then the process of domestication makes animals dumber than their wild counterparts. So you're literally killing intelligence in this sort of like cruel, like slave type way. There's so much play there. I absolutely love that. And yeah, that's just another thing that I think I want to lean into on the channel. I think that's class. Really dark.
Like, do you have an example of that?
Like
in fiction?
No, of the domestication, no. That's okay. Something that, like I said, I would like to lean into. And it follows from this sort of idea of like hunting sophons to like, wait a minute, what else can humans do that's really terrible? Domestication. And it kind of...
I mean, that's just a different word for slavery.
Well, I mean, I don't think this happened with this like Atlantic slave trade and all that. If we didn't, like, the white man didn't breed their slaves, did they? In a sort of like the same way you'd breed animals. This is very dark. I'm sorry, people.
It is my understanding that there was an element of that in America. Or that there was an intention towards their attempt. I don't know for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. But you can see how dark that is, though. Like,
of course, yeah, absolutely.
That is like, that is the worst. And again, because domestication, like domesticated animals that we have, are just dumber than their wild counterparts. It's just breeding the intelligence out of them. And like, imagine a scenario a bit like humans land on a planet. There's this intelligent species there. They domesticate a portion of the population, and like just from the point of view of from the domesticated and the non-domesticated, imagine how the non-domesticated would feel that their kin have been kind of like bred into to being animals again. Like there's so much like dark interaction goes on there. I'm sorry, I'm going off one. These are things I'd like to explore, and the whaling made me think of this. Like don't treat Sophons. Treating Sophons always as being holier than thou, like spiritual guides that come from the stars, happens too much, and I don't like it. This is cool. Hunting and killing the Sophons. This is cool.
Oh God, yeah, because the Tulkun, the bit of their brain that makes them spiritual is bigger. They're more spiritual than humans, and I really rolled my eyes at that.
Yeah, I have. I wrote here. More spiritual. ... daft. Apparently, just by looking at the neurons, you can tell that the culture has music, philosophy, mathematics, and complex language. It's like, does that follow? Does that, like, humans are intelligent, and there was a portion of time where we didn't have mathematics? Why would looking at a brain tell you that someone can do maths? That's a bit weird.
Yeah,
it was very strange. Like they could, and it's
wasn't a fan of that.
It was so stupid because they could just be like, they could say something like they have the largest brain to body size ratio that we have ever seen. This implies that they're highly intelligent. Stop right there. Don't go any further. But they had to go like they're very spiritual and mathematical.
There was something like that because didn't Spider or didn't someone say how do you know? And he said, the number of connections. That just leave it there. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. Don't go on to make assertions about mathematics or whatever. And it's just like, we get it. Like we these are smart. You don't need to treat the audience here as being really dumb, Cameron. Come on. So the juice that they get from the whale that makes humans that stops the aging thing. I wonder. I don't know if this is the case because I've not read anything about this second movie. I wonder, is this a replacement for Unobtainium? Because like Unobtainium was dumb and everyone hated it, and they went out of their way to explain. Like I think at one point some character says, "This is the reason we are on Pandora now. Like this is the prime exploitable resource." I wonder if this is a backtrack, a retcon. Like Unobtainium doesn't exist anymore. It's fine. This is why we're here, and I wonder if that's because of pushback. Because I remember. Yeah, a lot of the reviews around the time the first one came out was like, oh my God, I can't believe you made Unobtainium a real thing. That's just meant to be like a MacGuffin. It's like if you made the MacGuffin a real thing. That's a bit weird.
Yeah.
So I wonder if Cameron was self-aware.
Blatant name to give it.
Yeah, exactly. So I wonder if Cameron was self-aware. And also, I think this age serum, this stops aging stuff, is a much better thing than the Unobtainium because it's like the Unobtainium I always thought was really weird that it's like it only exists on Pandora, but it's like it's depicted as sort of like a metal, and it's kind of like, and I know Pandora's magic and stuff, so I guess magic metal and magic can explain a whole bunch of things here, but it's like if it's a physical property of this universe, we would expect it to be in other places as well. Whereas we wouldn't expect this particular sulfont to be in other places as well. So this is a much better sort of thing to mine as a resource to extract from this planet than the sort of like magic metal, nondescript magic metal. This has like a role. It does a function. It's like this is how it's gotten, and the way it's gotten is more dark and grim than just like we mine. This is much, much better than the Unobtainium, and I'm kind of sad that they didn't think of this earlier.
I'd imagine that both will still be in play, because there was talk of mines, I think, at some point in the film, and you know, if there's an extra thing that they can massacre to extract, they're going to do that.
I mean, that's fair, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like when the white man came to the Americas, it's not like they were only taking, sugar or whatever. It's like everything that could be taken was taken. Yeah, fair. What else do I have here? Let me throw it to you. Have you got any points before I move on?
No, I mean, I guess, like, as I said, I overall kind of enjoyed this final act much more than I enjoyed the rest of the film. It did go on a bit long, but it was entertaining. There were bits where I thought the explosions and stuff didn't look great. I liked when the Tulkun jumped up on the ship and started massacring people on it. That was very cool. And then someone shot a harpoon at him, and he like ricocheted off his armor plating. I thought that was excellent. Very very cathartic seeing all the whalers get killed. A big load of fun. In effect, this ended up being kind of like watching The Rise of Skywalker for me, because I did not enjoy that movie. And I rolled my eyes and just got frustrated at nearly all of it. And then at the end, they led a cavalry charge up the wing of a spacecraft carrier. And I was like, well, this is just silly fun. And I could just get into this ridiculous big action set piece. That's kind of how I felt here. Like, I wasn't that invested in anything that happened. But then there was a big action set piece, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, but I wouldn't describe it as silly fun. Like, again, it was still taking itself way too seriously.
Yeah, it wasn't as lighthearted as Rise of Skywalker.
You've kind of gone into summation time, but I do have a couple more points quick fire round.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Quick fire round. Let me fire out a bunch of points, and if there's anything that you want to respond to, just shout.
Sure.
Yep. The breath mechanic I found a little bit weird. Sometimes the Na'vi, when they're diving, seem to have near infinite breath, and other times barely any breath. It was just kind of a bit strange, and it felt lots of times it felt like they've been underwater way too long. Obviously, they're Na'vi. They might have different lung capacity than we do, but it felt like the breath, how long they could hold their breath was relative to what the plot needed to do. And that was a bit frustrating. The Na'vi kids were handcuffed to the ship with like what was effectively slap bracelets from like the early 2000s. I thought that was gas. Absolutely hilarious. There's a point where the military avatars are on the deck of the ship and they're communicating with Jake as the two sides line up for each other ready for conflict. And one of his subordinates goes, looking down the barrel of his sniper or whatever, and was like, I've got him in sight, I've got a clean shot, should I take it? And then the guy was like, oh no, you can't do that because they'll attack now. And like, it's like, no, shoot Jake, you idiots. Like, this is plot armor here, because it's like you are on a fully loaded like ship here with a bunch of people with guns and stuff, and there's like a half dozen on the other side. You have like firepower, rockets, you've harpoons, you've everything here. Just shoot Jake and then massacre everyone else. Very simple. But it's like, no, we can't possibly do that, because then we couldn't get to the big fight scene, and that was just stupid. I didn't like that at all. They could have just ended it shortly after that, like, but they just chose, we need more. We need to stretch out this runtime. Very bad. The guns kept getting dropped in the water. I know nothing about gun culture, and obviously, again, these are futuristic guns, so like they could do whatever, but I always thought that guns get waterlogged. But people seem to be constantly dropping things in water, and it was just all fine. The whole I wrote here
depends on the gun.
Depends on the gun. Okay, cool.
Yeah, in reality, and yeah, as you said, these are future guns, so.
But I hate having to lean into that too much, do you know? I hate have to be like, well, they're magic guns, or you shouldn't have to lean into this, do you know? It's like the thing we constantly bring up. Was it Clark or Sanderson's magic laws? Which are they? Sanderson, isn't it?
Sanderson's, yeah.
Yeah, like magic shouldn't be used to solve a problem. Like, I shouldn't have to invoke magic to be like, well, that's why this was, because magic. It should be the cause of the problems, not the solution to like plot holes. I wrote that the whole sinking ship part was unnecessary. They just stop it. We could have ended it long before the ship started sinking. The whole protracted sequence of them getting out is just, I felt like Cameron just really wanted to do Titanic but on an alien world. It was no good. I also had a note here that wrote, how exactly does drowning work? Because, can you enlighten me on this? How do people drown? Because this movie seemed to imply that what happens when you drown is you lose consciousness, and then you like lie on the seafloor for an indeterminate amount of time, still alive, and can be resuscitated. Like, I thought, like, it's like, if you don't hold your breath, your lungs will fill with water really rapidly, you asphyxiate, and you die. Like, there's no sort of like, there's no prolonged period where you're unconscious underwater. Is that, do I just not know how drowning works here, Bill?
I mean, for humans, yeah, I mean, like, once you're unconscious, you're going to start breathing, and then you're going to be breathing water and asphyxiate.
But is this process a rapid process or is this a prolonged process?
I think it's pretty rapid.
Yeah, that's what I always thought.
But I mean, like, maybe it's different if you're Navi.
I know.
We didn't see any humans drown.
Yeah, I know. But again, the drowning also felt a bit like how long it takes someone to drown is dependent on plot. Like if they need to come back, the drowning will take forever. And it's like, oh, God damn it. And
we didn't actually see anyone die from drowning at all.
No, we didn't. But we saw, well, as far as I remember, we saw like people being underwater for varying amounts of time. Yeah. And they all come up as if they were just like borderline ready to have passed away. And it's like, well, what is it here, pal? Is this a rapid thing or is this a prolonged thing? I don't know. It's not a big deal. It just threw me out a little bit. Final thing I have before my ultimate note, my final note is long final sequence. Lots of exclamation marks. My penultimate note is Kiri's wings and the sea fireflies are a bit of a Deus Ex Machina. And I didn't like it. Because as far as I'm aware, this final battle took place outside of the reef, like out in open waters, and earlier in the
Three
film,
Brothers Rocks,
exactly. And then earlier in the film, it was shown that all of these cool creatures, like the wings and the sea fireflies, were in and around the like sacred sea soul of trees. What was it called?
Tree of Souls.
Tree of Souls was in their little lagoon thing, and then it's like
I don't think the Tree of Souls is in the lagoon. The Tree of Souls is further away.
Is it? Is it beyond the reef?
So. Yeah, I think it is beyond the reef.
Oh, I didn't get that impression at all. Well, then that point is less valid. But it was kind of like they showed up. Let me find a map of the Metakaina villages. But yeah, just everything's going wrong. And then Kiri, our Ewa incarnate character, just kind of like appears with like the oxygen givers and the sea fireflies and then solves the day. And it was a bit out of nowhere.
Okay, hold on. So, sorry, it's the Spirit Tree, and it's located in the Cove of the Ancestors.
Cove would imply not beyond the reef.
Well, no, I think it's a... Okay, let me think. Cultural sites, Navi villages. I don't know where they... Come on.
Oh, wait, no, sorry. Wait, is the Cove of the Ancestors that cool-looking radial rock formation thing?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so sorry, I got it wrong. Yeah, that looks very much like it's out a bit. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I guess the wings and the sea fireflies could have made their way over. But again, it just.
But also, she's magic, so she can ask Ewa or Pandora to provide them.
I know, but again, Bill, we shouldn't have to be like because magic. Like the magic should be.
I think that's a little different. I don't think that's in violation of Sanderson's laws, because it's not like a new thing that happened. It's been very clearly signposted. I mean, I'm not saying that it's good writing necessarily, but I don't think it violates Sanderson's laws.
Oh, no.
It's been very clearly signposted that she can do that kind of thing.
No, I know. Yeah, but I mean, it is bad writing. I feel like the excuse for the bad writing is just like because she's magic, and that's a bit sad. It shouldn't. The writing should be good enough that we shouldn't have to fall back on because she's magic. And those are my notes.
I have one remaining.
Oh, you have one remaining. Go for it.
I hate how the Colonel survived. So at the end, his drowning. His avatar is drowning, and Spider, his son, doesn't considers abandoning him to die, and then saves him, and then brings him to the surface, and then leaves him there and goes back to join the Sullys. And this is the thing that really annoys me in media. Like, when you come to the bad guy and then you've got the moral high ground. It's like, no, I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to be better than that. You've killed 100 henchmen with no qualms whatsoever. And suddenly it's only moral when you get to the actual head bad guy.
Yeah.
Really annoys me.
I agree.
Now, that's not a problem with the film as such as it is a problem with a lot of things. But it is also in the film.
Those poor... I guess, would they be red coats? It's a Star Trek reference. The dudes in the red uniforms, no one ever cares about the nameless guys who get slaughtered all the time. The red shirts. Those poor red shirts. No one ever cares about them, but will care about the named characters. So summation, question mark? Should we go into summations?
Summations.
Summations.
Yeah.
Okay. So this
You go
is
first.
I think this film, despite its flaws, is fine. I feel no compulsion to watch it again at all, but I don't hate it. And I think there were redeeming qualities in it, like the whaling thing. I thought that was kind of fun, and there were some good ideas that were brought to the table, just executed poorly. Like I said, probably needed an extra draft, some editor needed to get a hold of it. So it was it's fine. But still suffers a lot from I suppose my biggest problem is like the stereotyping. That's my biggest problem with the whole thing and the first one. So yeah, no compulsion to see it again. Middle of the road sort of film. And like, how much did it cost to make? Like, how much did Avatar 2 cost? It cost, oh my god, does it cost 250 million? That's actually less than I thought it would cost.
Wow.
Budget was 250 million. Apparently it's just past the 1 billion mark. So I mean, Cameron's made his bag. He'll be able to put the kids through college now. Wonderful. So, summation. I suppose you're never going to watch this again. I'm
not planning on it. I mean, I was told that the way to watch these is in the cinema. I'm not going to see it anytime soon in the cinema. If there was some reason to go back, if they ever ran it again, maybe, if someone wanted to see it. But I'm probably not going to watch it like on my laptop.
Yeah. And
lose the effect of the visuals because I didn't get much out of those in the first place, and I didn't get that much out of the story either. So, no, probably not.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I've one more summation.
Well, I've one real-time follow-up before you go on. I'm seeing here that actually there's a number of different claims to how much it made. Apparently, it may all, according to Dextero.com, the film may have cost 460 million. There seems to be an awful lot of, Oh no, it had a reported budget of 250 million. However, there are reports that the figure has swelled to between 350 and 450 million. Okay, so it costs, let's just say $500 million.
Yeah.
Now, one more summation point.
There is an episode of Futurama where they go to a theme park on the moon. And history has kind of been forgotten. And so the theme park says, we don't really know what the first people on the moon were like, but it may have been something like this. And then these like animatronic whalers come out from behind a crater and start singing, "We're whalers on the moon, we carry a harpoon." And that was all I could think of during the final act, that they were whalers on the moon.
That sounds hilarious. If I watch Futurama, I'm sure I would be giving you a hearty giggle right now.
Everyone ought to watch Futurama. It is a fun show.
I'm sure there's a bunch of listeners right now who are like, lol.
I hope so.
But I'm sorry, that one is large enough for my head, pal.
That's okay.
Okay, so I think that is Avatar 2 done. Will you come and see Avatar 3 with me?
I guess I'll have to. Just for the sake of consistency.
Yeah, and apparently there's like a 4 to 5 planned or something. We should do those too, just to really wear down your mental health. Okay, so folks, real quick, what's going to happen is we are going to literally next week, as of the time of this recording, we're going to record another episode of this podcast, and it's going to be the Jade City podcast, the book by Fonda Lee. We're going to review that boyo. So if you're interested in that and you've not read it yet, buy the book now and give it a read before that podcast comes out, which hopefully will be like mid-January. So there'll be some fairly rapid-fire podcasts coming out in 2023, which is pretty cool. So thanks a million for watching, folks, and supporting us on Patreon. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday season, had a happy new year, etc. And myself and Bill, I'm sure I speak for Bill in this regard, in wishing you all the very best for 2023. Let's hope I say this every year, let's hope it's a better year than the previous year. At some stage, that's going to have to be true. If I say it enough, it'll have to come true. So here's to 2023, the best year. Until next time,
Edgar out.